Your father drove you home with no seatbelt and a lit Marlboro between his fingers, ash drifting onto the back seat where the dog slept. Your mother propped the glass baby bottle on a dish towel and walked into the next room. None of it was strange in 1974. All of it would get a parent investigated today. Number 23 still sits buried behind some elementary schools. Number 11 is the silver bead your teacher said was harmless if you touched it once. Number 18 filled the autumn air on every block the week the leaves came down. What most people miss is that none of these things were considered dangerous at the time. Not one was a crime. The laws just caught up with what we already knew was hurting us. Hit that subscribe button. Here are the 25 things illegal now, but normal in the 1970s. Number 25. Lawn darts. A backyard in suburban Cleveland on a Saturday afternoon, 4 kids barefoot in the grass, 2 plastic rings tossed 20 feet apart, and a pair of weighted steel spikes with yellow plastic fins arcing through the summer sky. Your older brother held the dart by the tail and pitched it underhand toward the ring, the way the box at the hardware store showed in the cartoon drawing on the lid. The brand was Jarts, sold by Regent Sports for under $5 a set, stocked next to the badminton birdies at Sears and Kmart from the late 60s through the late 80s. The spike was almost a foot long. It weighed about a pound. When it came down hard enough to drive through a wooden picnic table. Between 1978 and 1988, the Consumer Product Safety Commission counted more than 6,000 emergency room visits and 3 child deaths from lawn darts, including a 7-year-old girl in Riverside, California, killed in her own front yard when a dart thrown 2 houses over sailed over the fence and struck her in the head. Her father, David Snow, spent the next year writing letters to Washington. The federal ban came down in December of 1988. Your set is still in the rafters of your parents' garage. The box collapsed, the fins faded, the spikes still sharp. Number 24. Leaded gasoline at the pump. The Sunoco station on the corner had 3 handles: regular, premium, and the one your father always reached for, the silver nozzle marked with the little red sticker that meant tetraethyl lead. The price in 1972 was 36 cents a gallon. The smell was sweet, almost metallic, and it stuck to your hands for an hour after you pumped. Lead had been added to American gasoline since 1923 to stop engine knock, and by the early 70s, the average American child was carrying enough of it in their blood to lower their IQ by several points before they ever learned long division. The Environmental Protection Agency phased it out beginning in 1973, raised the price gap on unleaded year by year, and finally banned the sale of leaded fuel for road vehicles on January 1, 1996. Pediatric blood lead levels in the United States dropped by more than 90% in the 2 decades that followed. The little red sticker is gone. The pump on that corner now sells coffee. Your father's Oldsmobile, the one with the 8-cylinder engine and the chrome grille, would not even legally start at a public station today. Number 23. Smoking on commercial airline flights. Your aunt flew TWA from St. Louis to Los Angeles in 1976 and sat in row 22, smoking section, where the stewardess handed her a small foil ashtray and a complimentary book of matches stamped with the airline's red logo. The cabin was a fog of cigarette and pipe smoke that slid forward into the non-smoking rows because the air conditioning pulled it that direction the entire flight. Pan Am, United, Delta, every carrier, every route, every aircraft, smoking allowed from takeoff to touchdown until the federal ban on flights under 2 hours took effect in April of 1988. The full ban on all domestic flights came in 1990, and international routes followed through the late 90s. Flight attendants who worked those decades developed lung cancer at rates that would later trigger one of the largest class action settlements in airline history. The ashtrays and the armrests of older planes are still there, riveted in place, sealed shut, because the FAA still requires them so passengers who break the rule have somewhere to put the evidence. Number 22. Driving without seatbelts. Your mother drove a 1973 Ford Country Squire with the wood paneling on the side and the rear-facing third row where you and your sister sat looking out the back window at the cars behind you. Nobody wore a belt. The belts were stuffed under the bench seats so they would not catch in the door. The first state seatbelt law in America was not passed until New York in December of 1984, and it only covered the front seats. By the early 90s, almost every state had followed, and rear seat laws came after that. In the 1970s, the federal government estimated that more than 50,000 Americans died in car crashes every year, a number that has been cut almost in half even as miles driven have tripled. Your father called the seatbelt the chicken strap. Your mother called it the wrinkle maker. Neither of them ever buckled one until the day a state trooper in Ohio handed them a ticket on the way home from your wedding. Number 21. Riding in the open bed of a pickup truck. Saturday morning in 1977, 6 neighborhood kids in cut-off shorts and sneakers piled into the bed of a Chevy C10 with a cooler of grape knee-high between them, headed to the lake while your uncle drove 55 miles an hour down a county road in southern Indiana. Nobody held on. The wind pulled your hair straight back. You stood up at the red light and waved at the car behind you. Today, 30 states have laws restricting passengers in pickup beds, most of them enacted after a string of fatal accidents in the late 80s and 90s when state troopers began counting how many of the bodies they pulled from the asphalt had been ejected from open truck beds rather than from inside passenger cabins. California passed its restriction in 1991. Your uncle's Chevy is gone. The cooler is in the basement, still smelling faintly of grape. The lake is the same. The ride is a felony almost everywhere now. Number 20. Hitchhiking on the interstate. Your older cousin stuck out his thumb on the shoulder of Interstate 80 outside Toledo in the summer of 1975 with a duffel bag at his feet and a hand-lettered cardboard sign that just said, California. He got there in 4 days, riding with truckers, families on vacation, a Vietnam veteran in a green Plymouth Duster, and a woman on her way to a wedding in Reno who fed him a sandwich at a roadside diner and refused to let him pay. Hitchhiking on interstate roadways was outlawed in most states between the late 70s and the mid-80s, partly because of the way the highway shoulders were redesigned, and partly because of a wave of high-profile murders that rewrote the public mind about who might be standing at the on-ramp. The federal interstate system still technically allows hitchhiking off the shoulder in some jurisdictions, but try it today in Ohio, Pennsylvania, or New Jersey, and you will end up in the back of a state cruiser before you finish your sandwich. Number 19. Lead-based house paint. Your bedroom in 1973 was painted Cleveland beige, 3 coats deep, and the windowsill was chipped where you had picked at it with your fingernail through 2 winters. The paint chips were sweet on the tongue, which is how millions of American children ended up in pediatricians' offices across the country with elevated blood lead levels through the 60s and 70s. The paint companies knew. Internal documents from Sherwin-Williams and the Lead Industries Association, later released in court, showed they had understood the danger to children since the 1920s. The federal government banned lead-based paint for residential use on February 27, 1978. The houses themselves did not get repainted overnight. The Centers for Disease Control still estimates that more than 30 million American homes contain lead paint somewhere under the newer layers, most of them built before 1978, most of them in working-class neighborhoods where the renovation budget never quite reached the trim. Your old bedroom is now an office. The windowsill has been sanded down twice. The dust still tests positive. Number 18. Asbestos insulation in homes. The attic of your grandparents' bungalow in Buffalo was packed with loose gray fluff that looked like dirty cotton candy, blown in by a contractor in 1968 with a hose and a face mask he never bothered to wear. The product was called Zonalite, mined in Libby, Montana by the W.R. Grace Company, and roughly 70% of American homes insulated between the 1940s and 1990 received some version of it. The fibers were so fine they passed through 3 layers of drywall and sat in the lungs of anyone who breathed them. The Environmental Protection Agency began phasing out asbestos in 1973 and finalized a near-total ban on most uses in 1989, though parts of that ban were challenged in court, and the most aggressive version did not take full effect until the EPA closed the remaining loopholes in March of 2024. Mesothelioma, the rare cancer caused almost exclusively by asbestos exposure, still kills around 3,000 Americans every year, most of them men in their 70s and 80s who installed the insulation, ripped out the boilers, or grew up sleeping in bedrooms directly under attics like your grandfathers. The town of Libby itself, where the vermiculite was mined, was declared a federal public health emergency in 2009 after researchers traced more than 400 deaths and 2,500 respiratory illnesses to a single mining operation in the Kootenai Valley. One thing few people talk about is how the product kept being installed in American homes for nearly 2 decades after Grace's own internal memos showed that workers were dying. Your grandfather worked 23 years as a Buffalo plumber and ripped pipe insulation out of school basements every summer through the early 70s. He died in 1997. The diagnosis was on the first page of the autopsy. Your grandmother kept the report folded in the back of her checkbook for the next 11 years. Number 17. Drinking and driving without a legal limit. Your father drove home from the Elks Lodge in 1971 with 3 Pabst Blue ribbons in his bloodstream and a 4th one open between his knees. He was not breaking the law. Most American states had no statutory blood alcohol limit at all in the early 70s, and the ones that did set the threshold at 0.15, almost twice what is illegal today. The shift began in 1980, when a 13-year-old girl named Carrie Leitner was killed by a repeat drunk driver in Fair Oaks, California, and her mother Candace founded Mothers Against Drunk Driving the following May. By 1988, the legal limit in most states was 0.10. By the year 2000, every state had moved to 0.08, and federal funding rules pushed the holdouts into compliance within 4 years. Drunk driving deaths in the United States have fallen by more than half since their 1982 peak, even as the population has grown by 100 million. Your father stopped drinking in 1979. He never said why. Number 16. Cherry bombs and M80 fireworks. The 4th of July, 1976, the bicentennial summer, your neighbor's older brother stood in the alley behind the duplex with a paper grocery bag full of red round explosives the size of golf balls, each with a green wax fuse sticking out of the top. He lit them off a Marlboro and tossed them into a coffee can, and the can jumped 6 feet into the air and rang for an hour afterward in your ears. M80s were originally manufactured for the United States military as ground simulators, a quarter stick of explosive power, and they were sold in fireworks stands across America until the Federal Child Protection Act of 1966 banned them, with the regulations strengthened and actually enforced by the Consumer Product Safety Commission in 1976. Cherry bombs followed under the same ban. The black market kept them in circulation for another decade. Every emergency room from Indianapolis to Tampa filled up on the 4th of July with kids missing fingers, eardrums, and pieces of their hands. Your neighbor's brother lost the tip of his thumb in 1978. He still tells the story like it was a privilege. Number 15. Mercury glass thermometers. The medicine cabinet in the upstairs bathroom held a slim glass tube with a silver bead trapped at the bottom and a red line painted up the side. The same thermometer your mother had used on you since you were 2. When you had a fever, she shook it down with a hard flick of her wrist, slid it under your tongue, and made you sit for 3 minutes while she counted the second hand on the kitchen clock. The bead was elemental mercury. If the glass broke, your mother picked the silvery droplets up off the linoleum with a piece of masking tape and threw them in the wastebasket. The Environmental Protection Agency began phasing out mercury thermometers in the late 1990s, and by 2012, 19 states had banned their sale outright, with most pharmacies pulling them voluntarily before the laws even passed. Mercury is a potent neurotoxin. A single broken thermometer in a small bedroom can release enough vapor to require a hazmat cleanup. Your mother is 83. She still keeps an old one in the bathroom drawer. She says digital is for people who do not trust glass. Number 14. Buying handguns through the Sears catalog. The 1962 spring catalog sat on the coffee table in your grandfather's living room until 1979. The corners curled, the pages still listing .22 caliber rifles, 12-gauge shotguns, and a handful of small-frame revolvers available by mail order to any adult with a money order and a return address. The Gun Control Act of 1968 ended interstate mail-order sales of firearms to private individuals after the assassinations of John F. Kennedy, Robert Kennedy, and Martin Luther King, all three rifles purchased through the mail by men using false names. The catalog kept printing the listings for a few more years out of inertia, but the order would not ship. By the mid-70s, the gun pages were gone. Today, buying a handgun in any state requires a federally licensed dealer, a background check, and identification. The catalog itself stopped printing in 1993. Your grandfather's Smith & Wesson is still in the bedside drawer of the house where he died. The box it came in, stamped Chicago, Illinois, postmarked April of 1961. Number 13. Children riding bicycles without helmets. The driveway in 1975, your Schwinn Stingray with the banana seat and the high handlebars. Your hair in pigtails, no helmet, no knee pads, no shoes most of the time. You popped wheelies off the curb, rode no-handed down the hill behind the school, and crashed into the hedge at the bottom of every street within a 4-mile radius before you turned 11. The first state bicycle helmet law in America was not passed until 1987 in Howard County, Maryland, for children under 16. Today, 22 states and more than 200 local jurisdictions require helmets for minors, with fines for parents whose kids ride without them. Pediatric brain injuries from cycling have dropped sharply in helmet law jurisdictions, though the United States still trails Europe by a wide margin in actual compliance. Your Stingray is in the garage, the chain rusted, the seat split. The hedge at the bottom of the hill is gone. The hill is the same. Number 12. Spanking with a paddle in public schools. The principal's office at your elementary school in 1974 had a wooden paddle hanging on a hook behind the door, drilled with 3 holes the size of nickels to reduce wind resistance and increase the sting. Your 4th grade teacher signed her name on the back of it the day she retired. Corporal punishment in public schools was legal in all 50 American states until the Supreme Court ruled in Ingraham v. Wright in 1977 that it did not violate the 8th Amendment, leaving the practice up to the states. New Jersey had already banned it in 1867. Massachusetts followed in 1971. By 2024, 33 states had outlawed school paddling outright, though 17 states, mostly in the South, still permit it under specific conditions. Roughly 70,000 American children were paddled in school in 2018, the most recent year for which the federal government published numbers. Your old principal died in 1996. The paddle ended up in a yard sale in Akron. It sold for $2. Number 11. 3-wheeled ATVs. The Honda ATC 90 hit American driveways in 1970 with a brochure that called it the all-terrain cycle and a price tag of around $600. By the mid-80s, Honda, Yamaha, Kawasaki, and Suzuki were selling more than 2.5 million three-wheelers in the United States, most of them ridden by teenagers and pre-teens with no helmets and no training on dirt trails behind the house. The center of gravity was unstable. Sharp turns rolled them. Front wheels caught on roots and pitched riders headfirst into the ground at 30 miles an hour. The Consumer Product Safety Commission counted more than 7,000 deaths and hundreds of thousands of injuries between 1982 and 1988. The 4 manufacturers signed a consent decree with the federal government on April 28, 1988, agreeing to stop selling new 3-wheel ATVs in the United States and to recall every used unit they could find. They did not recall most of them. The 3-wheeler your cousin tipped over in 1986 is still sitting in a barn outside Springfield. The seat split, the throttle frozen, the warning sticker faded white. Number 10. DDT residue on store-bought produce. The bag of Red Delicious apples your mother brought home from the A&P in Cincinnati in 1971 had been sprayed 9 times before harvest with a chemical that had been blanket applied to American farmland for 25 years. Dichlorodephényltrichloroethane, called DDT for short, was the most widely used pesticide in human history by the late 60s, sprayed on cotton, corn, fruit orchards, suburban lawns, and the bare backs of returning soldiers to delouse them after the Second World War. Rachel Carson's Silent Spring, published in 1962, traced the chemical up the food chain into bird eggs, fish, breast milk, and the fatty tissue of nearly every American adult tested in the late 60s. the Environmental Protection Agency banned DDT for nearly all uses on December 31, 1972. Bald eagle populations, which had collapsed below 500 breeding pairs in the lower 48 states, began to recover within a decade. Your mother washed those apples under cold tap water with her thumb. She thought that was enough. Number 9. Buying Quaaludes from your family doctor. Your aunt in 1974 had trouble sleeping, walked into her family doctor's office on a Tuesday afternoon in suburban Detroit, and walked out with a prescription for 3,300 milligram methaqualone tablets sold under the brand name Quaalude by the William H. Rohrer Pharmaceutical Company. The pills were chalky and white, scored down the middle, and they put her down inside 20 minutes. Quaaludes were prescribed by tens of thousands of American doctors through the early 70s as a non-addictive sleep aid, which they were not. By 1973, the Drug Enforcement Administration had moved the drug to Schedule II, by 1984 to Schedule I, the same category as heroin, and the last American manufacturer voluntarily stopped production that year. The recreational market collapsed in the late 80s. The Lemon 714 tablet, the most famous version, became a relic of the disco era and an artifact in police evidence rooms across the country. Your aunt threw her last bottle in the kitchen trash in 1987. The label was still on the cap. Number 8. Burning leaves in the front yard. October 1976. In any small American town, the smell of wood smoke and dry maple leaves drifting down every street as fathers raked the front yard into low piles at the curb, struck a kitchen match against the sole of their boot, and let the pile smolder through the afternoon while children bicycled through the smoke and breathed it in. The practice was tradition. It was also pumping carcinogens, particulate matter, and ground-level carbon monoxide into the lungs of every neighborhood in autumn. State and local burn bans began appearing in the late 70s under pressure from the Environmental Protection Agency's air quality standards, and by the early 90s, most American suburbs had outlawed open-leaf burning entirely. Compost piles, mulching mowers, and brown paper yard waste bags replaced the bonfire. The smell is gone. So is most of the asthma. Your father raked his last pile in 1981 because the new ordinance carried a $100 fine. He still talks about how the air smelled the right way in October before the township ruined it. Number 7. Riding on the open tailgate of a station wagon. The 1972 Ford LTD Country Squire with the rear-facing third row had a tailgate that flipped down into a flat platform. And on warm Saturday afternoons, your father drove the family to the drive-in movie theater with you and your 3 siblings sitting on that tailgate as the wagon rolled at 35 miles an hour through the parking lot, your bare feet swinging 2 feet above the asphalt. Nobody screamed at him. Other parents waved. Open tailgate riding is now banned in every American state under general restraint and child passenger safety laws, with most rear cargo seating in modern SUVs now factory eliminated entirely. The drive-in is gone. The wagon was sold for scrap in 1989. The asphalt of that parking lot is now a Walgreens. You can still feel the warm wind on the back of your neck if you stand on the corner where the speaker poles used to be. Number 6. Glass baby bottles propped up with no supervision. Your mother in 1976 boiled the 8-ounce Pyrex bottle on the stove, filled it with formula from a yellow can of Similac, screwed on the Playtex nipple, and propped it up on a folded cloth diaper inside the playpen so you could feed yourself while she ran a load of whites in the basement. The propping practice was so common it appeared in advertising photographs throughout the 1950s and 60s. By the mid-70s, pediatricians were warning against it because of the choking risk and the way constant feeding pooled formula against developing tooth enamel, causing what dentists later named bottle rot. Glass bottles themselves fell out of favor by the late 70s as plastic became cheaper and lighter. Then in 2012, the Food and Drug Administration banned bisphenol A, the chemical used in most plastic baby bottles, after research linked it to developmental problems. Today, an unsupervised propped bottle in any American daycare is grounds for immediate license revocation. The Pyrex bottle is in your mother's china cabinet. She uses it as a vase. Number 5. Open container of beer in the front seat. Your father drove the family to the cabin on Lake Michigan in 1978 with a Stroh's open in the cup holder of the dashboard, foam slipping down the side onto the vinyl, the cooler on the floor of the passenger side stocked with 5 more for the road. There was no federal open container law until 1998, when Congress passed the Transportation Equity Act and tied highway funding to state compliance. By 2024, 40 American states and the District of Columbia had passed compliant laws prohibiting open alcoholic containers in the passenger area of any motor vehicle on a public roadway. The remaining states, including Mississippi until 2003 and Louisiana with its famous drive-through daiquiri shops, slowly fell into line. Your father's Stroh's bottle is in the recycling bin behind the cabin. The cooler is still there. The cabin is yours now, and the rule on the dashboard for the drive up is not a rule anyone has to write down. Number 4. Crib slats wide enough to trap an infant's head. The white painted wooden crib your grandmother handed down to your mother in 1971 had vertical slats spaced just over 3 inches apart, wide enough for a 6-month-old to slide his head between them and not back out. Federal crib safety standards in 1973 set the maximum spacing at 2 3/8 inches, the width of a soda can, and the rule was tightened again in 2011 after a wave of mattress entrapment deaths. Drop-side cribs, which had been standard in American nurseries for 100 years, were banned outright that same year. The Consumer Product Safety Commission estimates that updated crib standards have prevented more than 500 infant deaths per decade since the original 1973 rule. The crib your grandmother painted yellow for your mother, then white for you, is in pieces in your sister's basement. She kept it for the wood. She would not let her own daughter sleep in it for one night. Number 3. Polychlorinated biphenyls in electrical transformers near schools. The gray metal box on the utility pole behind the playground of your elementary school in 1973 contained roughly 20 gallons of a coolant fluid called Aerochlor, manufactured by Monsanto in Anniston, Alabama, and used in nearly every American electrical transformer for 40 years. Polychlorinated biphenyls, PCBs for short, are a class of synthetic chemicals so persistent they accumulate in fish, soil, and human fatty tissue and stay there for decades. The Toxic Substances Control Act of 1976 banned the manufacture of PCBs in the United States effective January 1, 1979. The transformers themselves were not all replaced. Many are still in service today, leaking quietly into rainwater, schoolyards, and the foundations of municipal buildings across the country. The Environmental Protection Agency continues to fund cleanup at hundreds of contaminated sites, including the Hudson River, where General Electric dumped roughly 1 million pounds of PCBs into the water between 1947 and 1977. Your old playground is now a parking lot. The pole is gone. The soil tested in 2009 came back hot. Number 2. Dumping motor oil straight down the storm drain. Your father changed the oil on his 1974 Plymouth Duster in the driveway every 3,000 miles, drained the old oil into a coffee can, walked the can to the storm drain at the end of the street, and poured it down the grate. Every neighbor on the block did the same. A single quart of motor oil contaminates roughly 250,000 gallons of fresh water, and by the late 1970s, the Environmental Protection Agency estimated that American driveway mechanics were dumping more oil into storm drains every year than the total spilled by the Exxon Valdez tanker in 1989. The Resource Conservation and Recovery Act of 1976 made the practice federally illegal as a hazardous waste violation, and state-level enforcement followed through the 80s as cities began running used oil collection programs out of public works yards. Your father took his last quart to the Auto Zone on Main Street in 1991, where they took it for free and gave him a punch card. The storm drain at the end of the street was replaced in 2003. The creek it fed still has a sheen on the surface most mornings. Number 1. Selling raw milk over state lines. The dairy farm outside Lancaster, Pennsylvania in 1972 ran a small roadside stand where a family could pull up in a station wagon, hand over a glass jug, and walk away with 2 gallons of unpasteurized milk drawn from a Holstein that morning, the cream still rising in the bottle by the time they got home to Maryland. The Food and Drug Administration banned the interstate sale of raw milk for human consumption on August 10, 1987, citing outbreaks of listeria, salmonella, and campylobacter that had killed and hospitalized hundreds of Americans in the preceding decade. Today, interstate sale is legal in only about a dozen states, and crossing a state line with a jug for sale is a federal misdemeanor. Raw milk advocates still drive the back roads. Amish farmers still keep a herd. The jug your grandmother carried to that Lancaster stand for 40 years is in a cardboard box in your basement. The glass thick, the wire bale rusted, the lip chipped on one side from the time she dropped it on the kitchen floor in 1968. She lived to be 94. She drank a glass of that milk every morning of her life. 25 things, each one ordinary in the back seat, the medicine cabinet, the front yard, or the corner gas station of an American childhood in the 1970s. Each one a recall, a federal violation, or a felony by the time those children had children of their own. The darts in the grass, the leaded fuel at the pump, the cigarettes at 35,000 feet, the paddle behind the principal's door. None of these things were illegal in 1976. The laws just caught up with what we were already losing. Tell us in the comments which one your own family still remembers without flinching, and which one would land your parents in handcuffs today.